and welcome to Planter's Corner.
I'm Amanda Orlando. You may remember me from the 5 other YouTube videos that I made during quarantine. This is my balcony, the site of my future garden. My first consideration was the plan for my plants. How much sunlight does my balcony receive? In what areas and for how many hours per day? What plants would best thrive in that environment? Once I had my plan, I went to my local fruit market, which actually doubles as pretty much the best plant store in Toronto, if you ask me, and I was able to get all of the edible plants that I wanted to grow on my balcony. They had so much selection, I may be left with a few extras as well. While my focus for the garden was on edible plants, I have one non-edible one, which is a jade plant, and I have 2 lavender plants, which I'm actually planning to use for fragrance and not to eat. But mostly my focus was herbs, lettuces, and tomatoes. Tools and pots. Let's keep it real simple here.
Now, if you are a lazy condo gardener or apartment gardener like myself, then you definitely don't own any gardening tools at all. So this is what you will need.
You will of course need pots in which to house your plants. You will also need potting soil, a garbage bag, a pair of scissors, gloves, I'm using cotton gloves from the drugstore, and either compost or coffee grounds. The next step is the execution of the garden. Not as medieval as it sounds, I promise you. You'll notice that I'm using quite an assortment of different pots, and that's because I just didn't feel the need to buy all new pots for this project. I already had a few around the house. I also had a colander that I could use as a pot. I had ones that had come in previous flower arrangements. I'm all about reusing wherever possible. You don't have to go out and buy all new things just for your home garden. The next thing I did was cut open my bags of soil. You can actually buy soil at the dollar store near me, but I decided to splurge for the $5 a bag soil because it said premium on the front, and the woman who was selling it was really nice. The soil is beautiful and dark and rich, and I was feeling pretty good about this whole project. I also used dried coffee grounds. I mixed them in with the soil. Now that's something that I saw done at Starbucks, I think, when I was a teenager, and it just kind of stuck with me and I've always wanted to try it. So I saved some coffee grounds and I let them dry out, and then I just sprinkled them into the soil as I was planting. Apparently it's a good fertilizer for the soil. I would think that it acts much the same as compost because technically it is decomposed coffee grounds. But anyways, I gave it a try, so we'll see how it goes. Once you have a base amount of soil in your pots, very carefully snip out the individual plants. Dig a little hole into the soil, place your plant in, and then pour more soil around it. Basically, you want to create a nice, cuddly little soil environment for each of your little seedlings. If you find that a lot of pressure is building up on your knees and lower back, just try throwing a yoga mat down. I didn't think of this initially when I was planting, and let me tell you, my back was not happy, neither were my knees. So you can put a yoga mat down or just something to cushion the surface underneath of you. I ran out of potting soil, so I knew I needed an extra bag. I knew it, I didn't listen to myself. Anyway, and it's not really the environment lately to be running out to do quick errands like it used to be, because obviously we're living during the plague. So I have my face covering ready and my hand sanitizer, and I'm gonna make it super fast. Fun fact, my face covering in the next shot is actually an old undershirt. Got my soil. This part of the process does take quite a bit of time, so be patient with yourself. It took me 2 full afternoons to really get through it in a way that I was happy with the results. And don't forget to water your little seedlings because they've been through a lot. I quickly became obsessed with watching all of these little plants grow, and they grow up so fast. In fact, I had to actually repot some of the things that I had initially put in vessels that were far too small for them. So you want to make sure that you always leave enough space for them to grow. I think I had just underestimated how much the lettuces would grow. And then while I was at the plant store picking up a larger pot and a bit more potting soil, I also picked up a few more plants. And and I kind of realized that gardening is addictive. Yeah, basically by this point I was pretty well obsessed. Once again, I added some dried out used coffee grounds to the soil. I don't know if the coffee grounds actually made a difference since I don't have a control group that was done without coffee grounds, but I will say that I'm very happy with the growth of my plants overall. I mean, look at them, they're so cute. Okay, now time for cleanup. Part of this project was not just to grow a garden, but really to make our balcony more hospitable overall. So I picked up this really cute side table, something that you can just put a drink on. I also grabbed a couple new chairs that are really comfortable, and I grabbed these 2 casters, which are going to be very useful for moving the plants around throughout the day. The plants can actually be quite heavy, especially these ones in the larger pots. And because all of these plants require full sun, I do actually have to shift 2 of them in mid-afternoon to make sure that they are still getting full sun because there is a shadow cast onto the balcony. Now I'm very careful here with how I'm placing the plants because I don't want the taller ones to cast shade onto the shorter plants. So just making sure that everything is receiving the appropriate amount of sun so that it has ideal growing conditions. And don't think of them as set in stone. You can always move things around. For cleanup, I just vacuumed it up, honestly vacuumed it up and then emptied my vacuum right away so that the dirt wouldn't rot in there. You could also use a broom and dustpan if you have one handy.
I actually came in under my $300 budget at $279. I am so proud of that. For that, I got 22 plants, not 22 individual little plants, like 22 plastic containers of plants, some of which contained up to 4 or 6 individual plants. That's a lot of plants, basically. I also got 2 large pots, 4 medium-sized concrete pots, 2 small terracotta pots, and 5 bags of potting soil. Now, that works out to about $12 per plant when you include the cost of the potting soil and the pots, and I did manage to shave down the cost a little bit by using some pots that I already owned. $12 per plant is actually not bad because they're about $2.89 at the grocery store for a packet, so I go through them like crazy. So not only will I be producing less plastic waste, but also if I use my herbs 4 times each, then I've just broken even with what I would have got at the grocery store. So I better keep those suckers alive, you know what I mean? I did go ahead and add some extra features to my garden, which are completely optional. I bought 2 wheelie stands for my plants from Home Depot. They were $29.99 each. I just bought them so that I can relieve some of the pressure on my back when I'm moving the plants around into the sun, but it is completely optional. I also purchased a side table from Canadian Tire, which was about $60. It was on sale. And I also purchased 2 garden chairs so that I can sit there and enjoy it. Last night we had quite a thunderstorm with some pretty huge hail, and the water and the combination of the massive hail chunks actually forced a lot of the dirt out of the pot, and plants are not very happy. It's been about 2 weeks, and you'll see that I already have a ton of growth, especially on the escarole and also on the dandelion and also on the parsley. Actually, the parsley is doing pretty well. So I'm going to harvest them because if you don't chop them down, then they won't regrow. So I'm just going to use some kitchen scissors and a bowl and make myself a nice salad.
To harvest the lettuce, you just want to grab it by the side and cut it down close to the base, but not all the way down to the base. Remember that you do want it to grow back afterwards. The same goes for the dandelion. You want to leave at least 1 inch, and as well as the parsley. The greens just taste so much better when you grow them yourself. Honestly, look how beautiful and rich the color is. So delicious. I'm going to be repotting the Rainbow Swiss chard because I don't know what happened over the weekend while I was gone, but first of all, it exploded and it's way too big for this pot, but also all of the roots came right out. So it's still alive, but it's just hanging on by a thread. At this point, having a comfortable chair and a table and my phone so I could listen to a podcast while gardening was crucial because my body was aching. I was exhausted mentally and physically. I had been on my hands and knees gardening for so many days. I had gone back and forth to the garden store. I had gone to a big box store, which was a whole other ordeal. And with COVID, having to line up, having to do all these sanitary procedures, it's all very tiring. So by the end, I was really just happy to even have my pajamas on.
This is going to be ready to harvest in about another 20 days. We have a lot of little flowers, which means that soon we will have a lot of little tomatoes. Now between the two rosemary plants, one of them is doing very well, while the other one is actually not doing super well. I think I overwatered it and perhaps cut some of the roots by accident. The chamomile is looking excellent.
The next thing I'm going to do is install these little supports into the two tomato plants. Now, this is something that you should typically do when you're first planting your tomatoes so that it can support the plants as they grow upward and become heavy, especially once the fruit starts to grow. But I wasn't all that confident in my tomato growing ability, so I'm just adding them in after the fact. I got 4 supports from the dollar store for $1.25 in total. You can get these anywhere, gardening stores, dollar stores, you name it. They can be made of wood, metal, doesn't really matter. There are a lot of different options out there. And then what I'm doing is using the twist ties that came with the supports to just hold the branches in place so that they can better support their weight. I'm doing this on both styles of tomato. One is San Marzano and one is beefsteak tomato. You'll see that on both plants I have added 2 tiers of supports. You can buy supports that are already tiered, or you can just do them manually yourself as I have done. At this point in the gardening process, I've already got 2 full salads from this garden, and I've used the herbs countless times: oregano, basil, purple basil, parsley, chives, rosemary, you name it. I've used so much of it. But most of all, what I'm enjoying about this garden is just my obsession with watching it grow and creating something so beautiful. I wish you all the most rewarding, joyful, and delicious gardening experience. Thank you so much for watching.